Hello everybody. I want to talk a little bit about our elbow and lower arm positioning today. And the reason that is important is that a lot of times we focus so much on our hands and people will say, I don't know, my hands keep coming up and they're just having a life of their own in some ways. And I understand that. We all go through these different phases of development of fine-tuning our seats and the individual parts of our aids. But I want you to start to just think about, what does the elbow and the lower arm really have to do in order for the horse to be comfortable in all three gaits, right? And so I want to think about it in terms of the contact that we're trying to create. And the contact should always be, a result of the relaxation and the rhythm that we're creating first. And then, we're going to invite the horse to step more underneath themselves. Energy travels over their back and into their mouth and back into our hands. And in German, there is a word that's called Anlehnung. And Anlehnung means the moment of leaning on to something, right? And leaning on, I think, is really such a good term to explain all of this. We want the horse to lean in dressage a little bit onto the bit and the elastic rein contact that we're offering with our hands and with our, the support of our aids. And so if you start looking at that from the horse's point of view, in the walk, the horse's head has a definite forward and sideways movement, even in the free walk right now, as you can see. And that has to do with the fact that there are two joints that connect the head, skull, to the neck vertebrae of the horse. One moves as if it can nod and say yes, and one joint moves sideways as if it can say no. So the yes and the no joint is what I call these things, right? And when you think about it, that's why when you start in the free walk, I start with, trying to put my upper body into an imaginary cabinet that's filled with positive tension that's connected to the rest of my lower body, my legs and my feet. And then, of course, the cabinet has to do with being an extension or an anchoring point for the extension of our arms. And what I mean by that is that if I pick up the reins right now, just even in the slightest little bit, and I follow my horse's shoulders, Jamaica, can still move her head slightly forward and backward and a little bit sideways. And that allows for both of those joints to be lubricated and warmed up for the rest of our session. And I think that is always a really nice way to start. And when you look at just my elbows in this point, my elbows are just moving forward. It's not so much of an up and down, but they're sort of, if I anchor them slightly to my torso, then you can see how, they're just going back and forth, and there has to be a certain mobility in the joints, but it's not super visual or visible or, very pronounced is what I'm trying to say yet, right? If I go from here to the more classical rein contact where both hands give and take now to the horse's mouth, and this is more the medium walk type of connection or contact that you can establish with your horse. And as you can see, my reins are actually pretty nicely and elastically connected to my horse's mouth, but look at my elbows. My elbows swing pretty freely back and forth, and that is something that we really, really have to be conscious about. I see a lot of people who don't know exactly what to do with their hands in the walk, and then they avoid the walk altogether. And then the hands are just quiet here. And if I look at me, if I just hold my hands quiet here, or I can put them up higher here, what a uncomfortable situation that is for the horse, and how the head is suddenly just kind of bracing the neck, and then the back will be inverted, and suddenly the focus goes away. So much better to go and say, here, shoulder to shoulder, I help you with your mobility, even as we're in a little bit more of a working frame. Or, like I said, giving and taking with both hands at the same time. And, sometimes you have to vary a little bit depending on what goes on and what is needed at any given time. If your horse wants to look off to the sides, you correct that, set a boundary with your seat, but also with your hands. So this is the walk situation. Right now we're going to go into the trot. And in the trot, the horse's head moves very little. You know, we are in a 2-beat, and I'm going to go and take Jamaica into a little bit of a posting trot here, and you can see that she is most comfortable in sort of this long, stretchy working frame when I keep my hands absolutely quiet, and I have both of my hands right now anchored to the left and the right of my saddle, next to the pommel, right? So that way you can just see my elbows are opening and closing every time I'm rising, and I have to accommodate for that a little bit. I can also bring my hands up a little bit, and then, you know, still every time my body rises, I have to make up for the difference, right? So there it is in the posting trot. Then sitting, same idea. Every time my upper body swings up, the elbows need to be elastic so that my hands can stay in the same place. If I don't do that, if I lock my elbows, look how my hands suddenly would come up and down. That would be very uncomfortable for Jamaica. So I'm going to demonstrate one more time in the posting trot. Correct. Elbow opening and closing. And then sitting trot. There you go. Very nice. And then we're going to take this into the canter for a moment. I'm going to just let her have a little bit of a canter here. And you can see how actually my lower arm is very much in sync with the opening and closing of the angle between my upper leg, my femur, and my pelvic structure, the lower part of my upper body. Every time I swing with the horse's motion, my hip goes forward, my elbow needs to open up a little bit, right? And then closing when the horse makes me close my hip and lower leg angle again. So I think that will help you understand that a lot of these problems or issues that you might have with an unsteady hand have to do with your focus on your elbow, right? And so the lower arm is always an extension, hopefully, of your upper body, of your cabinet. That is just like, it's not going to be, you know, the same for everybody. Everybody has a little bit different conformation, just like horses do. But you will find that your version of what I was just demonstrating really, really has to always complement and allow the horse to lean on the bit comfortably, right? And with a stiff elbow, this will never work. So allow yourself elasticity. Just take a few, times in your riding where you just focus on one or two things in your seat, and then you're starting to develop a new habit and a new way of dealing with things. And in time, improvement will come, and the horse will benefit, you will have a better time, and everything will be wonderful. All right. Thank you for watching. Happy riding, and thank you, Jamaica.